In December 2018, I had a party at my house to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the original DOS Doom. I had a whole bunch of Doom stuff set up, and I had all kinds of console versions of Doom running, just all kinds of stuff going. It was great. And I had this idea in my head, this dream of dreams, that the centerpiece of the party was going to be 4 period correct 486 computers networked together, all set up so that people could come in and sit down and play networked DOS Doom deathmatch. If you love alliteration, click the like button. Just like we used to do back in the olden days. Unfortunately, I had the wrong kind of retro computer experience. Stop me when you've heard this story before. The kind of retro computer experience where you spend hours struggling with network card drivers and sound card drivers and IRQ configurations and IPX configuration setup and all of this stuff, and then finally you just give up, rage quit, and go to the pub. I never got it working. By the time I gave up on networked computers and decided I'm going to cut my losses, and I'm just going to I'm going to pick 2 of these, and I'm going to connect them by no modem serial cable, and that will be better than nothing. I couldn't get that working either. It turns out that there was some intermittent issue with one of the motherboards that I still have not resolved, which makes me very sad because that particular motherboard has a very rare feature of 486 motherboards, and hopefully it will make an appearance on the channel someday, if only just in a short to mourn its loss. So I decided that this Doomcember, I would vindicate myself. I was going to finally build the giant 4-player networked Doom machine of Doom, and I would bring it to part of a local retro computer club, and we meet once a month. So I'll bring it to our December meeting. I'll get there early and set it all up, and then when people show up, we can play games and we can have a good old time. So I spent a lot of hours getting these 4 machines configured, set up, tested. That's an important tidbit. And ready to go. And in fact, a couple of weeks ago, when I didn't have my regular Thursday, wow, that was hard to say, my regular Thursday video, and instead had a short, I showed a picture of this stack of computers, like ready to go. Like I was on top of things. So this video is going to be full of a lot of little pieces of advice about doing something like this. And the first piece of advice is bring extras of everything. Even the stupid things that you think like, how could this component possibly fail? I don't need to bring more than one of these. Bring an extra one. I had brought extra serial mice, extra network cables, extra power cables, lots and lots of extra things, but I brought exactly enough keyboards for this setup. I only have a couple AT keyboards, and these are all AT motherboards. So I mostly brought PS2 keyboards and adapters to be able to use a PS2 keyboard with an AT motherboard. I brought 1 AT keyboard, 3 PS2 keyboards, and all 3 of those adapters that I own. And one of those adapters didn't work. So I got there, I got it all set up, and one of the computers couldn't work because it had no keyboard. So I had to drive back home and dig out and find I had a couple untested AT keyboards. I had to grab those and drive it was an hour of my life that I will never get back. Now, as you might guess, this pile of computers did a really good job filling up the back of my Prius. Now, Geek with Social Skills had tweeted a photo of the setup from our club meeting, and some people gave him flack about, where are the VGA CRT monitors? What's with all this LCD nonsense? Well, let me tell you what. I have 4 CRTs, okay, but one of them is so dim that I would not wish anyone to play Doom on that. You would not see anything. And 2, like, I was already a lot of crap to schlep back and forth, and I was not gonna pack up even 3 CRT monitors, for the real original experience. And that was just not going to happen. I think we had a real enough experience as it was. Now, I finally did get everything set up and configured at the meetings, but one of the machines, I had tested all of the machines at least 2 at a time, and there's 3 of the machines that I tested 3 at a time. I just didn't have enough table space and monitors and power outlets easily accessible to be able to get all 4 going at once at my house. And one of the machines did not want to play along. We spent, after I got back with the cable, or with the keyboards rather, we spent another 45 minutes, I think, trying to get that this 4th machine, which unfortunately is one of the faster machines. It's one of the 2, one of the 2 fastest machines in the set. We could not get it to work. It could start up Doom and you could play Doom on it single player, but when trying to connect to a multiplayer setup, from the messages that would come out on the other computers and on that computer, it was like it could hear the other computers over the network, but the other computers could not hear it. And this was very bizarre because I know I had at least 3 computers going, including that computer at my house. So I haven't debugged and figured out what was going on, but there's something fishy going on. I don't know. It was being very difficult. But once I gave up on that and we decided, all right, let's just play 3-player and call it good, we had a good old time. And I know in my rational mind, I know I should consider this a huge victory because we had a lot of fun. I did a very cool thing. But my lizard brain tells me this was a complete and utter failure. After everything had gone so catastrophically wrong in 2018 and then getting so close, it's the old saying from, the Tale of Ricky Bobby, if you ain't first, you're last. I feel like I definitely wasn't first. Alas. There was a good variety of computers represented. The 46 SLC 250 megahertz for my 46 build-off, which felt like the slowest computer of the lot. I think it was. A 46 SX266, a 46 DX33, both of those had VLB video cards, a 46 DX266 with a PCI video card, that's the one that did not want to work, and all 4 of these, and hopefully at least one other system, will return later this month for the giant Doom benchmarking marathon that I'll mention more of later. There's going to be a little bit of gameplay footage now, with a lot of background noise and people chitter-chattering. If you want to skip over this to the commentary about how to configure Doom and get it all running networked, there are links in the description below for the time codes. Or you can just watch us blow each other up for a couple of minutes. Damn it, why is this so...
Wait. Actually, trying to get, I have that over the I don't know. Or no. Yep, it is. Alright, so it's something about either that card or that cable or something personal.
Oh, all right.
But I haven't even done that. Sorry.
How you do it?
Hey, everybody got 0.
That's right. I love it was boring anyway.
I was thinking exactly how.
Once you've crossed the hurdle of just getting a vintage PC configured and set up to be able to run Doom, which, I mean, the hard part of that is acquiring all the parts. Honestly, at this point, it's pretty well documented. This is a well-trodden path, and people will remember how to do that much. The part that is challenging then is getting multiple of these PCs to talk to each other. And this isn't like TCP/IP where you just, you download the driver for the network card. It's probably built in. It probably just works and point it at your DHCP server, and then automagical configuration happens, and, then there's much rejoicing. It's a lot more irritating than that. And the first irritation is the hardware might not work. Right? That's very real at this point. You're probably getting junk parts. You're maybe getting stuff off eBay that say, untested, was working when removed from service 237 years ago. Right? So, I've picked out a set of cards that I used and that I'm going to continue to use for this kind of thing that I picked for a few reasons. So, I've got 3 different cards depending on the class of PC that we're talking about here. So for 386, 46, 286 if you're nasty PCs, I've got a couple of ISA cards that I highly recommend. And then for late 46, Pentium 2, Pentium 3 sort of systems, basically up until the point when network cards started to become integrated onto the motherboard. This was my go-to back in the day, and this is my go-to now. All 3 of these cards were, and they're all completely different architectures from completely different manufacturers, although at one point Intel did buy this group from Digital when Digital was sort of self-cannibalizing itself and selling off its own limbs for party money, I guess. And Intel did manufacture these chips for a time, but they're just the digital chips. And I'm going to come back to that in a minute. One thing so these were all from big manufacturers that had well-supported, well-maintained drivers back in the day. They can be challenging to find now, especially these ones. The drivers for this I could only find on archive.org, thank goodness. But the thing that's most important about these 3 cards are the DOS drivers for them come with a piece of software, and it's different for each one, that will run self-tests on the card. Now, I have another. So there are a lot of variations of this digital networking chip. Be sure to get one that actually has the digital logo on it. There were some made by other manufacturers that were clone chips that were not as reliable. They had issues even when they were working. Now this was one of the cards that I had tried to use years ago when I tried to have a Doom 4-player LAN party. And I couldn't get it working. And it turns out it wasn't because of anything I was doing. This card is bad. And I know that this card is bad because the self-test software with the driver told me, this card won't respond to interrupts or won't generate interrupts. It won't do anything. This card is dead. So off it goes. And the driver packages for both of these cards, and there's a bunch of variations of this 3-com card. Basically anything that's 3C5 ... is going to work with the same driver package. There's just, mostly, I think it's just different revisions of the chips, whether or not it has a ROM socket, what kind of ports it has on the card. This one is full featured with the 2 ports you hope to never use and twisted pair. Although, for this little mini party, if I would have had 3 working cards with coax with 10 base 2 ports, I would have used it just so that I didn't have to lug a hub around with me. and also just to say that I may still do that at some point. But the self-test software for these cards saves you a lot of pain, right? You can just put the card in, and these are all plug-and-play cards. You just put the card in, run the software, test it, and say, oh, the card doesn't work. I don't need to spend any other time trying to figure out what I did wrong, because I didn't do anything wrong, is broken, right? And that can save a lot of just pain and suffering. One other thing worth mentioning before I move on from this part is when embarking on a project like this, where there's going to be a bunch of computers that have to be built for some purpose like this, it's a good idea to try to keep as much common between the various configurations as possible. Ideally, I would have used the same network cards for, the ISA systems, and in this case, there was only one PCI system, but I've kept them all the same. One for the purposes of being able to exchange parts, but also just for the purpose of having the software configuration be the same and kind of limiting the number of variables to juggle in your mind. Back in the day, when I used to have LAN parties at my house, I had a few systems set up for people to use, for people who didn't have PCs that they could bring or whatever, that they could just come over and drop in and play. And that was when I started using these digital network cards, and all of my systems had them, and the config was the same. I needed one set of drivers. It kept things simple. The way that I applied that in this case is I used the same sound card, this trusty AW64 was used in all 4 of those systems, because I could just put the cards in there and copy the exact same sound config from one machine to the next, and they were all the same. I have a couple extra ones of these, so if something went wrong, I could just pull one out, pop another one in, and it would just work out fine. It is a way to maintain your sanity in the face of this sort of adversity. I highly recommend this approach. My next piece of advice is kind of two parts. One is part of how I implement the other. Be organized. There's a lot of different files for different things and a bunch of different stuff that need to be put on all the systems. So do this in an organized way. And with modern computers, like, you're probably not keeping the sole copies of this stuff on the retro PCs. They're on some modern PC, and you've got CF cards or SD cards or something like that you're going to use for storage in this and take out and attach to the modern PCs to actually get data on it. Or maybe transfer files over a network or something like that. So what I have done in that way is I have a single directory where I put all of everything. Whoops. No, it's not all of everything on this. This must have been one of the first ones that I did. In general, it's where I put all of everything. On some of the other machines, there are a bunch of other drivers in this drivers directory that I have on my modern PC. And the first thing I do when I set up the memory card that I'm going to use in the retro PC, I just copy all this stuff over. The Cute Mouse driver, the Sound Blaster drivers, the network driver. I just copy all of it over because the disks are big enough, and if I need more games than will fit on the disk that the computer can handle, you know what? I just get another one and have some games on one card and other games on another card. Like I can survive that. So I wanted to show on the 3Com, and then this is just the raw extract of what came from the from the driver pack. I have not mucked around with this at all, and I didn't even run like the install scripts. Like, I know where the stuff lives on in here. I can just find it when I need to. So in here there is a no, it isn't. Oh, that's right. So if you do on this, if you run the 3C5X9CFG, I believe in the configuration. Okay, so there's in their configuration program, there's a bunch of stuff to configure the adapter and all that, but what I care about right now is test. So it's got this built-in test functionality, and so you can just, and it will go through and it will run the tests. So if your card is bad, you know right away, before you've even wasted any time trying to configure the rest of the networking stuff. Like, you know you have bad hardware, and toss it and start over with some piece of hardware that's good. It's way better than the alternative. And so that's part of the reason why I like these 3Com cards, and then also, dig it out, these Intel cards have similar software. The Intel card software is kind of neat. It actually has functionality in it where if you have multiple of these cards on your network, one of them you can set up as a test server, basically, and then the other one they'll basically talk to each other, so they can actually test going out over the wire without loading any other stuff. Like, it's the test program banging raw on the hardware and trying to talk to another one of these somewhere on the network. It is a pretty cool piece of functionality. So then you can know if you've got a bad hub, bad cables, whatever. And also, I mean, because it's actually communicating over the network, it's a much more thorough test. And I just noticed this as I was about to reboot this computer so that I could turn the network driver back on, because this program won't run after you have a driver loaded. There was some editing that happened, but I noticed it has this functionality where you can basically do the same thing, enable it to operate as an echo server. I suspect that you need to have two identical cards using this same piece of software, so you can't mix the Intel cards and the 3Com cards. But either way, it's still super cool and way better than you get with a lot of people recommend any 2000 cards because it's kind of the lowest common denominator. As far as I know, you don't get this nice functionality with any 2000 cards, and this is huge when dealing with, 30-year-old hardware that you found in a bin at a garage sale or at an e-waste site or something like that. Knowing that it works before you waste your time, absolutely for the win. One thing that is super annoying about DOS network drivers is there's a lot of different kinds. It entirely depends on what the next layer of software up is going to be in the networking stack. And that makes it really confusing to figure out what the heck to do. So, to get Doom running, you want to look for, and every driver will, or every piece of hardware and its drivers will kind of, there's no uniformity in how things are named. But somewhere there will probably be something that is called like NetWare or NetWare Client or something like that that will lead you to believe that it is NetWare related drivers. You don't want a packet driver. Now, the other clue about it is there will usually, so in here, client, so there will, so the other clue that you will often get is there will be a net.cfg file somewhere with the COM file that you actually want. Now, I'm going to use this CFG in a moment in sort of the next step. So the other piece of software involved in this, and I'm going to put a link to the person's GitHub because I just totally blanked on his name, put together a nice set of drivers for, this was primarily set up for doing IPX and TCP/IP networking on any 2000 cards in DOSBox, but I'm going to ride on his coattails a little bit. And in this IPX directory, there's, actually I'll do it this way, there are some of the sort of the next layer up, the ODI stuff is sort of the next layer up in the stack, and the net.cfg. So copy the device manufacturer's net.cfg into here, and then there'll be some editing that needs to be done to it. This is another this is another place where you may fail on your quest. Probably want to take the defaults, except comment basically all of the frame and protocol stuff out, except there will be two lines kind of like this that specify what kind of Ethernet frames to use and what protocol to put on them. You want these two, you don't want anything. There may be other lines like this, and again, every driver manufacturer is going to put different crap in there, and so there'll be different editing to do to figure out. But this is the good stuff. There's also 802.2. If you have this instead of this, and I suppose if you had this on all of the computers, it would work. What fails is if you have them mixed. Some have this and some have that, and then they're like, it's like they can't understand each other's accents or something. Okay. Then, finally, in the autoexec, you're going to load LSL from NetIPX and IPX ODI from NetIPX, and then whatever the driver comp file is. And again, this will be different on each driver. There's a different one for the Intel cards. It's a different path, different name. There was a different one for the digital cards and for every other card. If you're using any 2000, you can probably just use the one that's in net IPX, it's, net IPX NE2000.com. That should work. And then that's it. The hard part is then finding the drivers. And I'm going to put a ton of links to drivers that I know of. Some of them will be on archive.org in the description, and I will try to update that description as I come across new hardware and new drivers and find that stuff. I'm kind of thinking about maybe just putting a bunch of this together in like a GitHub repository or something, but I don't know how I feel about redistributing other people's binaries like that, and it seems like a stupid thing to get anyone grumpy at you about. I don't know. Maybe after all these years it's fine and nobody cares. I don't know. But then that's it. So then a quick reboot. And now the drivers will load and we can start Doom. Good messages from all the drivers that everything loaded and was completely happy. You can see that it's a 10 megabit card running at 10 megabit. Oh, that's right. This one. So I learned the hard way that you can't move directories in DOS with just built-in commands, because why would anyone need that functionality? Long story. So there's a special to launch your server. You use IPX setup. If you want to play deathmatch, you say deathmatch. Whoops. And you type it correctly. And then the thing that's tricky is if you just run it like this, it's going to default to a 2-player game. But you need to say nodes and then either 2 or 3 or 4 for however many clients, and then it will wait until 3 friends show up. Now this is the only computer on this network right now, and I guess I don't have any friends right now, so it's gonna just sit here and wait forever. The other thing that's a little bit frustrating about this that I think it's just Doom has bugs. So if you hit escape to exit, okay, and then rerun that command again, it will instantly bail out with OpenSocket. And it has done this on every single, all 4 different drivers that I've used with this version of Doom. Could just be something in this version of Doom that when you escape, it doesn't close something with the IPX layer. I don't know. So you do have to reboot at this point. And so at the club meeting, there was a lot of rebooting. We got a lot of 3-finger salute exercise. Let me tell you what. So I think that covers about everything. If you have any other problems trying to get Doom the networking part of Doom set up, message me in the comments below, and I will definitely try to help out. Or you can dig around in the channel page and find my email address and email me there. I don't actually check that email very often because pretty much all I get there is spam. So posting in the comments is probably a better approach to get in contact with me. Getting a computer set up at all to run Doom really is the hard part. Once you've got like the help to know what the parts are that you need to get software wise to get the networking to work, and then it's just set up the things and tell it to go. But we don't have that. We don't have a lot of friends to hang out with anymore who do this stuff all the time to sort of share that tribal knowledge, and we've kind of forgotten, right? I mean, that's what happens. Hardly anyone knows how to make wagon wheels either. I mean, what are you going to do? So coming up next, I'm going to have a giant set of Doom benchmarks, basically across every combination of hardware, of 486-ish hardware that I can put together all different video cards, all different processors, different cache configurations, like everything that I can figure out to put together from stuff that I have. And I've got a lot of stuff. And then after that, I might do one more video playing around with memory on this system. This system that you can't really see because it's just out of frame, is the 386 SX25 that I upgraded to a 46 SLC2 in my 46 build off. I'm gonna play around with the memory on this and do some kind of silly things. It will be the intersection of my bad memory video and the Doom benchmarking video. So if you're interested in seeing those future videos or any of my other future content, please click the subscribe button. It really helps the channel out. I'm really, really close to 900 subscribers. I'm hoping to get 900 before the end of the year. I think I need like 31 more as of earlier today before I recorded this. If you like this video, please click the like button. If you think that I have done things in a horribly inefficient way that obviously could be better, please tell me about it in the comments, because I'm sure that I'm going to do more stuff like this, in my own personal time in the future, and I would like to learn and do it better. I'll see you again soon, and until then, try to remember the good stuff.